Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about the 10 best non-horror movies of 2023.
Your adventures will continue for years.
So today I wanted to talk about my favorite movies from this last year that were not horror, or at least not exactly horror. Some of these are kind of on the fringe, because I see a lot of movies every year that are not horror, and I just never talk about them on this channel. And so I thought you might be interested to hear what my favorite movies in general were from this last year. But I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comments. Let me know if you'd like to see me once in a while cover things that are not just horror, or should I just stay in my lane, just do horror movies and nothing else? Either way, I would love to hear your opinion. And with that, let's get to the list.
I'm not racist. You don't like boba and you never fucked an Asian guy.
Damn, still?
When I masturbate, I sometimes fantasize about Splinter. He's Asian.
He's a rat.
He's a good father.
Joyride is a comedy directed by Adele Lim in her feature directorial debut. It stars Ashley Park, Sherry Cola, and Stephanie Hsu. The story follows four Asian American friends as they bond and discover the truth of what it means to know and love who you are as they travel through China in search of one of their birth mothers.
Hey, honey, you good? Did you get the Coke bags out?
Yeah, but only 7, and I think I put in 8.
Just push, pull. Twist it. It's not a puppet. It's my asshole.
I was completely shocked by this movie because I'm not really a fan of comedy. I've talked about that before. It's just not really my thing. I enjoy, comedy horror movies or mashup comedies, but for the most part, I'm just not really a fan of straight up comedies. But this movie is incredible. It is so funny. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time. And I've been really surprised that I haven't heard more of a buzz about this. Maybe it's because it's really crass humor, it's rude, it's vulgar, it's definitely off-putting and offensive, I'm sure, to a lot of people. So maybe that's why. But I just thought it was hilarious. And I get it. If you're a guy out there, you see the cast, it's all women. It's like a, finding yourself, drama, comedy kind of thing. And it just looks like something you would not be interested in. I get that. But trust me when I say, it is surprisingly hilarious. It doesn't matter what sex you are, what nationality. There are things in this that anybody can identify with, but just in general, it is hilarious. There's so many scenes in it that surprised me and shocked me. It's just a great little comedy, and one that if you're looking to have fun with something, just a lighthearted movie that does have some layers of emotion, but if you're just looking to have a blast, this is a great pick.
Sanctuary. The safe word is sanctuary!
Do you even know why you're doing this, or is this just the game?
Yes.
Ah!
Look at me. Don't look at me.
Sorry.
Sanctuary is a psychological thriller directed by Zachary Wiggin. It stars Margaret Qualley and Christopher Abbott. The story follows a dominatrix and her wealthy client Hal, and the disaster that ensues when Hal tries to end their relationship.
Your new job, you wouldn't be able to do it without what I taught you.
What do you want?
Half of the salary for the job that I got you.
You're insane.
It would be a story. CEO shoves cotton swab into own penis when commanded. Denver dominatrix tells all.
This is a twisted, uncomfortable movie that has a lot of layers in it, and it's interesting because it really is one of those one location films with just literally two actors, that's it, and it's just their conversation. And even though that premise doesn't sound like it would be that fascinating, it really is. It is amazing how captivating it is and how these two performers can just really keep you invested the entire time, because their conversation goes in so many different directions and there's a lot of surprises, things that you just don't see coming. It really shows that if you have a great script and really quality actors, that you don't need anything else to keep the viewer captivated and just engrossed in what's going on the screen. Because you see so many of these bloated films with huge budgets and all this, and yet you walk away feeling empty and barely remember anything you just watched. But a film like this is the exact opposite. It's one of those ones that sticks with you long after the fact. I think it's an absolutely brilliant, layered film, and one that I highly recommend. Artifice Girl is a sci-fi thriller written and directed by Franklin Rich. It stars Tatum Matthews, Lance Hendrickson, and Sidna Nichols. A team of special agents discover a revolutionary new computer program to bait and trap predators. And after teaming up with the program's troubled developer, they soon find that the AI is rapidly advancing beyond its original purpose.
The reason you can't find Sherry, the reason why she doesn't have a last name or a social security number, is because she's not a real human being.
Hey, what's up? I'm Sherry.
This is another really small movie that once again relies on its performers and the dialogue and just the story in general. It isn't just one location like Sanctuary, but it is pretty limited on its locations. And we've been hearing so much in the headlines about AI, and the directions that this takes that AI subject is really interesting. But I just really enjoyed the journey that this takes you on and where we end up ultimately. On top of that, it's great to see Lance Hendrickson again. He has a small role in this, but the performance that he does give is still really powerful and strong. I think this is a brilliant little movie and absolutely a can't miss.
Oh.
Poor Things is a sci-fi black comedy. Directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, it stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, and William Dafoe. It's an incredible tale of the evolution of Bella Baxter, a young woman brought back to life by a brilliant and unorthodox scientist.
She's an experiment.
Good evening.
Her brain and her body are not quite synchronized. But she's progressing at an accelerated pace.
What a fun movie this is, but it is weird. It's strange and bizarre on a lot of different levels, but it's colorful and charming. It's vulgar and offensive. It's all the things that I really enjoy in a movie because it's so artsy and whimsical, yet dark and graphic. It's just wonderful. And all the performers are great in their own way. William Dafoe is incredible, Emma Stone is amazing, but Mark Ruffalo really steals the show. He is so fun to watch in this film. But this is one of those ones that's definitely not for everyone. This is one that I personally adored, but I could definitely see a lot of other people just hating it for multiple reasons. It's full of sex and nudity and just uncomfortable, bizarre moments, visuals that are uncomfortable, but it's also so colorful, so creative, and so artistic. It really is a movie that I loved, and if it at all sounds interesting to you, then you have to check it out.
We are supposed to be the good guys.
We are.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is an animated superhero movie directed by Joaquin Dos Santos and Kemp Powers, with voice performances from Shameik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, and Oscar Isaac. The plot's about Miles Morales, who catapults across the multiverse, where he encounters a team of spider people, charged with protecting its very existence.
Wherever you go from here, you have to promise to take care of that little boy for me. Make sure he never forgets where he came from.
Man, this took me back to being a kid. I had so much fun with it, and I even saw it like 6 times, I think. It is just such a colorful, fun, creative kind of film, and it takes animation to like this whole nother level. This movie, as well as the original one, and then the new Ninja Turtles movie too, like just the way animation is looking these days, it's so fun and creative. The way they're mixing together different animation styles, it just gives it this layered comic book feel that's a blast. But beyond the look of it, the voice performances are stellar, and the story, it's captivating, it's interesting, it's fun and exciting, but it's also dramatic, and it has a lot of these moments that are emotional and really keep you invested in caring about these characters. This is the way superhero movies need to be made, and unfortunately DC and Marvel with their live action stuff lately have just missed the mark. They're just not getting what makes a great superhero movie. You hear all these people talking about, you know, superhero fatigue and stuff. I don't really think it's that. I think it's just we're not seeing quality made movies, period. It doesn't matter if it's comic book or not. If you don't have good characters and a good story, it's hard to get into it. No matter how glitzy and glamorous and gorgeous the movie may look, with all these amazing special effects and explosions and all that, it still has to have a soul. And this movie has a soul and is absolutely so much fun. It is definitely a must-see. Beau Is Afraid is a surrealist black comedy thriller. Written, directed, and co-produced by Ari Aster. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Parker Posey, and Nathan Lane. Following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic odyssey back home.
You will walk many miles. Dozens will become hundreds. Hundreds will become thousands. Your adventures will continue for years and years.
As soon as you get home.
I know.
I wasn't really sure if this was enough of a horror movie to include on my best horror movie list this year. And that's why I just didn't put it, because it isn't exactly horror, but it kind of can be horror depending on who you are, because it delves so much into anxiety and what makes you uncomfortable and what just really gets you under your skin. And in a lot of ways, what true horror is as an adult in this world. Because I know as someone who personally deals with, crippling anxiety at times, it really hits home. But it's also a dramatic, emotional film at times as well. There's so many layers to it. It takes so many different directions. It in some ways feels like separate movies, like each act kind of feels like its own movie as it goes along. And that's what really gives it this odyssey, this great, epic journey feel to it. But it's so quirky and weird and creative that I loved it, but it also is not for everyone. I know a lot of people that just did not get with this movie, and that's fine. It isn't made for everyone. It really is one of those that's just for people that really enjoy artsy, strange, weird, bizarre, uncomfortable kind of stuff. I think Joaquin Phoenix is just amazing in this. It's one of my favorite performances I've ever seen from him because he has to show so many layers of emotions, and a lot of it is just through his expressions and mannerisms, because he doesn't always get to verbally explain what he's feeling, but yet you never feel like you're struggling to figure out what he's going through. It's also hilarious. There are some really, really funny moments in this movie. So it really takes you on this wide range of emotions and experiences, and that's what I think is so creative and wonderful about it. It's one of those movies that even if it's not your thing, I think most people can at least still respect the craftsmanship, the filmmaking art that's in this, because it's just that well put together. And so that's why there was no doubt for me that it had to be on this list.
This is about not giving up. We have a word for that in Finland.
Sisu!
Sisu is a historical action thriller, written and directed by Jamari Helander. It stars Jorma Tommila, Mimosa Willamo, and Axel Hennie. When an ex-soldier who discovers gold in the Lapland wilderness tries to take his loot to the city, he is faced by Nazi soldiers who stand in his way.
Get down on your knees. Fuck him up! We got gold!
This is a movie that shows how action films can be done and should be done, because this is not a movie that has a huge budget, and yet you are completely invested in this movie from moment one. There isn't even much dialogue, and yet you are completely engrossed into it. Because the main character is such a badass, you don't need to really hear him say anything, because his actions just have so much weight to them. And yet it's funny, but it's also really brutal and graphic. It's just such a joy to watch. It's full of so much violence, but all shot and done in a really creative, fun way. And it constantly twists and adds new elements and new layers to what's going on, so it never feels stale, it never slows down, it just keeps rocking forward. And when this came out, I did hear a little bit of a buzz about it, but I haven't heard anyone really mentioning it as one of their best of the year, and that surprises me, because I feel like it kind of has been forgotten a little bit, and it shouldn't be. This needs to become a cult classic. It's that good. It's that fun and just such a brilliant little gem. So if you have yet to see this, do yourself a favor and get on it. Check this one out.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Truman needs to know what's next.
2.
What's next?
1.
Oppenheimer is an epic biographical thriller written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, and Emily Blunt. It's the story of an American scientist, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and his role in the development of the atomic bomb.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
It was really cool. I got to go to an early screening of this at an IMAX, and it was one of only like 10 of the IMAX theaters that had it being shown in a certain resolution. I forget which one, but it was like a special thing, and it was just amazing. It was a breathtaking experience because this movie in general is just that grand. It's a huge, amazing kind of film. But for me, also being able to see it on that IMAX just gave it so much more weight and power. But it's such a tremendous story. It's haunting and terrifying because of the things that it brings up, the way it talks about atomic warfare and just the message in general that it has. It's a really dramatic, powerful film with incredible performers. I mean, this cast is so stacked. And just the direction from Christopher Nolan, the way that it's shot, the angles that he chooses, the pacing, and the fact that it's all done with practical effects, it really shows you how much more power and weight practical effects can have. And I hope that this shows other filmmakers that you can still do amazing and breathtaking effects without having everything be CGI. Either way, this is film on a grand scale. This is how you do a blockbuster, big biographical kind of movie. I think it's a remarkable film and definitely one of my favorites this year.
Godzilla Minus One.
Godzilla Minus One is a Japanese sci-fi action thriller. Written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki, it stars Ryunosuke Kamiki, Miyane Hambi, and Hideaki Yoshioka. Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster, baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb. So to be totally honest, I've never really been into Godzilla. That's just not my jam. I didn't grow up with it. And so I think a lot of it is that if you grow up with something, you understand it and you love it and you appreciate it and all that. I was never exposed to it really at all until I was an adult. And so as much as I think it's cool and I do understand why other people love it, I've just never really got into it. And even the American versions of Godzilla, I've been, lukewarm on them. I haven't disliked them, and they've been kind of fun, some of them, some of the Godzilla versus Kong ones and stuff, but for the most part, it's just not my thing. And so going into this movie, I didn't expect to enjoy it much at all, but I did hear some buzz that was starting when it first came out, and so I was like, what the hell, there's nothing else going on, I'm gonna go check it out. And I was just absolutely floored, blown away from the very beginning of this movie all the way to the end. Because it's not about the monster. The monster is just the threat. It really is about the characters, the story. You get emotionally attached to all these different characters, and it has humor and different layers of emotion, from happiness to sadness, excitement, fear. Like, it has all those things. It's even fairly scary at times because Godzilla in this is almost more like an earthquake or a hurricane. He's like a huge, natural disaster kind of entity instead of just being this monster, because he just annihilates everything he goes through. And it looks incredible. The special effects in this, I mean, the budget that this was done on just blows my mind. Like, I don't know how they were able to accomplish what they did. I know a lot of it was done with practical suits and miniatures and things like that. It's another one that just shows, hey, you don't need to do every single movie with all CGI. Practical effects can be done and look incredible, because this movie looks as good as any blockbuster we've seen in recent memory. But it's just a joy to watch a movie like this. It has everything you want in a big blockbuster, but also a movie that has layers and emotion that you really care about everybody involved in this. I think it's an incredible movie and absolutely my number 2 pick in 2023.
Will forever be the greatest family in the history of wrestling.
The Iron Claw is a biographical drama, written and directed by Sean Durkin. It stars Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, and Holt McCallany. It's the true story of the Von Erich brothers, who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s.
Together, we can do anything.
This is a movie that completely blindsided me. I did not expect to be impacted so much by this. It stuck with me to this point, and it's been like a month since I saw this, maybe longer, and yet it still just sticks with me because it's incredible that this is a true story. And yeah, I know they did change a few things, so don't get at me in the comments. I have looked into it, I've done research into it. Just like Oppenheimer, it put me down this trail of looking and watching real documentaries and learning about these characters and this story. And that's, to me, when a movie really gets to you, is when it causes you to just become slightly obsessed with it for a while. And this did that, because the emotional weight in it, the ending of this movie, I mean, if you're not in tears, I don't know if you're human, because if you have any family that you care about at all, this is gonna really get you. It's just this tragic story. And I don't want to get too much into it, because if you're like me, prior to seeing this, I knew nothing about this. I'm not like really a wrestling fan. I mean, I watched a little bit of wrestling back when I was a kid, you know, in the Hulk Hogan days, but I was never like really into it, and not as an adult really at all. So I didn't know their story like at all. I had no idea about these brothers and the tragic story and all the different things, you know, how they overcame, you know, tragedy, but yet had more and more things happen to them. It's just insane that this is a real story, that these things really happened to these brothers. And what's even more amazing is that the story is even worse in a lot of ways than what they put in the movie, because the director even talked about how the reason they cut out one of the brothers is because it's like you can only take so much tragedy, and it was at a point where if you put even more in, people would start to question if this was real and authentic, because it's just so much happening to just one family. And beyond that, there was just other tragedies as well that weren't included in this. But what they do include is just heart-wrenching, but it's still fun, and there's a lot of love and excitement in this movie too. It's not like a depressing movie. It has all these different layers. It's so well performed, so well directed. Everybody involved in this movie should be proud. It really is a fantastic movie and really deserves some Oscar buzz. It probably won't get it because it was put out, you know, at the end of the year in December, and so I'm not sure if it'll get recognition like it deserves. But for me personally, this is the one that really hit me in the heart the most and had me just so impacted by it for really, like I said, weeks after. And so without a doubt, for me, this is definitely my number 1 pick for movies that are not horror for this year. But if you haven't checked out my top 10 horror movie video, definitely check that out. I did top 10 horror movies of the year, top 10 independent horror movies of the year, and top 10 streaming horror movies of the year. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week, I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys absolutely mean the world to me. And if you would like to help support this channel, help keep the lights on around here, there's a link to Patreon down in the description. Or if you want to become a channel member and help support the channel that way, there's a button right down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun, or even non-horror movies for that matter. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about my 10 favorite A24 movies. And I'll see you guys next time.